This is the IELTS speaking test with Hendra from Indonesia, who I would give a 7.5. He was almost an 8, but stick around, listen to the feedback to find out why he just missed the 8 mark. And also to listen to the advice I give Hendra, and Hendra shares some of his tips on how he prepared for IELTS speaking. Let's do it. This is the IELTS speaking test taking place today online. And the candidate is Hendra Lim. The examiner is Keith O'Hare. Hello, can you tell me your full name?
My full name is Hendra, so it only consists of one word. I don't have family name.
Right, and what shall I call you?
Hendra.
Hendra, fantastic. Great. So I've seen your ID, and now in the first part of this test, I'm going to ask you some questions about yourself. So let's talk first about your hometown. What's the most interesting part of your hometown?
The most interesting part about my hometown is that we have lots of cafes. We have lots of cafes, and these cafes, they cater to the needs of the youngsters. Okay, and it has been progressing quite excellently. So if you visit my city, you can go to different cafes, and we have different themes in the cafes, and they all cater to people of different ages.
And what do tourists like to visit in your hometown?
Interestingly, when tourists visit my hometown, they want to see like the breathtaking view of the mountains, and they want to enjoy the temperature, the mild temperature of my hometown. But if you visit my country, if you visit my hometown at the present time, we also have cafes, and the cafes actually complement the essence of enjoyment.
Okay, let's talk now about weekends. What do you usually do on the weekend?
Okay, I'm sort of a loner person. So even though I have already had a family, I have already had a wife and a daughter, but I like to spend some time alone on weekends in order to reflect on my lives, because I'm a bit of a melancholic person.
Yeah. Did you do anything special last weekend?
Last weekend, last weekend I decided. Last weekend I stopped. Last weekend I went to a donut shop. Okay, and I was thinking over I was thinking about my research proposal. I tried to come up with an excellent idea that will satisfy everybody.
And what do people in your hometown usually do at the weekend?
People in my hometown usually go to the cinema, or they usually gather together in restaurants, or in public places. But now that the COVID situation is still happening, they would prefer to stay at home.
Let's talk now about text messages. Do you prefer texting or calling?
I would prefer to, if it is not too urgent, I would prefer to text, because I can formulate my words and sentences so that it will not hurt someone else's feelings. But in times of emergency, I would prefer to call the person. Yeah.
How often do you send a text message?
Every day, actually, in a matter of minutes, because I need to contact my students constantly in order to know their progress. And besides, I also work as a home tutor, so I need to know whether they are going to change the schedule of tutoring or not.
Do you think there are times when it's better to send a text message rather than call people?
Yes. If let's say if I have hurt someone else's feelings and I don't think that this person wants to be contacted, so I would prefer to text this person. So then again, I can come up with my best answers, not to hurt these people's feelings, instead of calling the person.
So let's see how Hendra is doing so far on part one. Well, let's look at his fluency. He's speaking without noticeable effort, right? He is, by and large, quite fluent, although there were some false starts, bit of repetition, self-correction, beginning again, and that slowed it down a little bit. But there was some good natural use of connectors, right? Every day, actually, when he's answering a question. So it's good. I mean, it feels like it could be between a 7, possibly an 8, something we'd look out for in the next part. What about vocabulary? Well, he's got a wide range of vocabulary, right? And I sense he's using it flexibly and with great precision, right? Even in part 1, cater to young people. I'm a bit of a melancholic person, a bit of a. Great. Come up with phrasal verbs as well. He's got a strong sense of collocation and he's showing it, right? Breathtaking views, mild temperature. So even in part 1, he's demonstrating strong vocabulary, very few mistakes, probably up at the 8 level. Grammar, similarly, there is a wide use. Even in part 1, he's using present perfect tenses, right? It has been progressing. I have already had a family. He's using continuous tenses, both in present and past, and even mixed conditionals. If it's not urgent, I would prefer to. Wonderful grammar, very strong, very few mistakes. Again, up at the band 8 level. Pronunciation, he's easy to understand throughout. He has lovely pronunciation. Sentence stress, word stress is clear. Nice, very nice use of weak forms. Instead of was, of, right? Very, very clear, good weak forms. Connecting speech at times. By and large, intonation is good. There is a little bit of repetition of the rising intonation pattern, didi, 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 through some sentences, but not too much. Again, my feeling is he's around an 8 for pronunciation. Let's see how he does now in part 2 and part 3. So I'm going to move on now to give you a topic, okay? And I'd like you to talk about it for 1 to 2 minutes. You have 1 minute to prepare, and you can make some notes if you wish. And I'm going to paste and copy the question for you now. Okay, let me put this in the chat box. I'd like you to describe a film that made you laugh. So yes, so remember, you've got 1 to 2 minutes to talk. Don't worry if I stop you. I'll tell you when the time is up. Okay, can you start speaking now?
Yes, okay. So the film that makes me laugh is the film that breaks the convention. It's the film that breaks the normal convention. Normally when I watch, for example, like Damsel in Distress, in which a woman's happiness is a woman's happiness belongs to a man. Okay, so the film that I can explain to you, for example, like Cinderella, I think is a bit not normal for me to say this. Yeah? But Cinderella, according to me, Cinderella, the newest version, the Kenneth Branagh version, is very funny, according to me, because when it presents damsel in distress, okay, because Cinderella is depicted as an independent woman, but at the same time, she knows, but at the same time, she also knows that her source of happiness is on the man. So this is like I don't know. This is like into into contradicting ways. So she is independent, but at the same time, she still needs a man to complete her happiness. And that makes me laugh because of the irony. Thank you.
Okay. Would you recommend this film to other people?
Yes, yes, I would recommend this film to any girls, any women, because it teaches them to be independent, even though there is the sense of being dependent on men, and men will give them happiness, even though that is like a sort of criticism. But I will recommend this film.
Okay, great. Thank you. So, great. We've been talking here about a film that made you laugh. I'm going to go on now to ask you one or two more questions related to that. So let's talk about laughter, first of all. Do you think that laughing is important in modern society?
Yes. So the saying that laughing is the best medicine is very true. Especially, for example, like my in my lifetime, for example, people say that I am quite humorous, and that makes me happy. And I also rarely got sick because I laugh even at the corniest joke.
And
Yeah.
do you think that comedy has changed in recent years?
Yes, I think comedy has had some degradation recently, because in the past comedy is all about slapsticks, but now comedy is more about exploring women's organs, and that is not good actually. So that is my point.
Why do you think this change has happened?
Because the industry knows that if we expose women and if we make fun of women, it sells. So we live in such a patriarchal system that if we make fun of women, for example, women's jugs, for example, it makes everybody happy. It makes men happy, and that sells. And that is dangerous at the same time, according to me.
Right. Let's talk more about films then. So what kind of films are popular in your country?
Films that are popular in my country are horror films because, again, it sells easily. In my country, in my country, local horror films, they present simply violence along with sexy girls and good versus evil, as simple as that. And it sells. It sells to many different kinds of audiences. Yeah.
And do you think that the film industry in your country is going to change in the future?
Uh, I will sound a bit pessimistic about that because the main target of the film industry is to gain money as is to gain a lot of money, and the producers, they know that the easiest way to earn it is to present films that are easy to sell. In this case, horror films, which explores sexuality and thriller at the same time. It sells really easily.
And speaking kind of generally around the world, what impact has globalization had on local film industries?
Well, it has impacted a lot actually, especially on the themes. The themes in my country, it used to be really taboo, for example, to talk about sexual orientation in the past. But now that Netflix is everywhere, yeah, And Netflix, let's say, is not ashamed of making films about LGBT, for example. And now it has to be admitted that even my local film industry, the film industry in my country, they start to explore those issues, even though we are a bit conservative and some religious fanatics disagree with that.
And I mean, you mentioned Netflix. Do you think with the rise of streaming services that the local cinema is going to disappear?
No, because as far as I'm concerned, Netflix is all about quantity and not quality, honestly speaking. So as far as I'm concerned, Netflix simply tries to make the subscriber not stop. Yeah, not stop. So they come up with films with common themes, repetitive themes, simply to get them to subscribe. But cinema is a whole different kind of experience, because in cinema it's all about you and the film. So the focus is completely different. Netflix is all about chilling. It's all about gathering with your friends, and sometimes you skip some of the scenes because you simply want to be entertained. But
Great. I'm
in
going
the
to have to
theater,
stop you
it's all
there.
about you in cinema.
But great. Thank you very much. That's the end of the speaking test. Great. So that was it. Let's see how Hendra has done in part 2 and part 3. First of all, fluency. Well, fluency, if I were the examiner, I would be racking my brains thinking, is it a 7? Is it an 8? Ultimately, I want to know, is it like speaking to a native speaker, right? It's just, there's that high level of fluency. And I felt at times there was some false starts, some loss of coherence at times because of occasional thinking for language, not just for ideas, which for me brought it down to a band 7 on fluency. Although topic development was good overall, and the use of connectors was great, honestly speaking, as far as I'm concerned, simply very, very nice, but I would possibly go down to a 7. Vocabulary, he carries on with great range of vocabulary, using less common and idiomatic vocabulary skillfully, I would say. Comedy is all about slapstick. She is depicted as an independent woman, right? Very, very nice. And I think what's more, there is even use of euphemism and more abstract things, like it's all about exploring women's organs. The control of language to be euphemistic here when he's describing it is great. If we make fun of women, it sells. The abstract idea of that sells. Really nice language. The corniest jokes. So I felt these, although there were a few mistakes, they're probably only a handful. And for me, that control and precision takes it to a band 8, I would say. For grammar, again, he carries on with this very wide use of different tenses and grammatical features, using conditionals, relative clauses, and even at times kind of the abstract use of the tense, right? When he says, I will sound a bit pessimistic, right? It's the use of will, but not for the future, but actually right now, I'm sure that I will sound pessimistic. Really nice use of tense there. And I think that, again, so few mistakes that I would put him up at an 8 for grammar. And pronunciation, he confirmed for me that he can maintain great intonation across longer clauses. clauses. And even though there were occasional mispronunciations of words, like patriarchal, there was only 1 or 2. So again, for me, pronunciation was up at an 8. So overall, it would be a 7.5, but well on track to be an 8. Really, really good. I think my tips might be to especially in part 3, to develop the topics even more and to be careful not to repeat the same ideas, because sometimes there's a repetition of the same idea, which meant similar language was coming out again. So developing topics with new ideas in part 3 would really help the fluency, as well as, make sure that the vocabulary and grammar were really high up as well. So, Hendra, well done. Fantastic. Okay. And if you were to give any tips or advice to students on preparing for IELTS, IELTS and IELTS speaking, I mean, all of those areas, what would you say?
Okay. This is what I get from my experience. When we have our session of IELTS speaking, you are being interviewed by a person. So this person wants to get to know you. So you have to be yourself. You have to enjoy the session. That is the essence that I get. You have to enjoy the session. So if I enjoy the session, sorry, I use you. I mean you.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel that every time I enjoy the session, I can't stop doing it. And it may sound hard to believe, but the one that makes me enjoy this session is your video. Honestly speaking, is because every time I watch your videos, the way you speak, the way you come up with it, the way you explain stuff, it really inspires me. That's all.
That's great. That's great.
And, yeah, and another thing is, of course, to memorize phrases, to practice with idioms, to record things that we have spoken, and we try to make it better. So that is very classic. But the one that I feel from my experience is that we have to love it. We have to love this session. If we love this session, it doesn't matter what questions that will be asked, you will feel challenged to answer it instead of being afraid of memorizing stuff or forgetting stuff or things like that. That is what I feel.
Fantastic. That's great. Great. That's fantastic. That's great. I think it's very, very interesting and some very good advice there for the students who'll be listening to this. That's it. Thank you for watching. If you like the video, leave a comment down below. Remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notifications so you can watch more videos like this to help you with your IELTS preparation and help you get a higher score on IELTS speaking. Thanks for watching. Take care now. Bye-bye.